In 1885, Colorado Senator James Chaffee said of Aspen, "This camp is the hardest place to get to of any place I know of." Obviously, this was not news to Aspenites. Arguably, the most important element of Aspen's success and growth since the actual discovery of the silver lodes was the arrival in town of the railroad, or in Aspen's case, two railroads. In what we like to refer to as the Great Train Race, two separate rail companies, the Denver and Rio Grande and the Colorado Midland, staked their respective futures on silver and began laying track towards Aspen in 1886. In a way, it was a little silly and wasteful, like two Golden Gate bridges or two Panama canals, but, spurred onward by the promise of rich ore shipping profits, the owners of the two railroads directed their endeavors towards Aspen, and the two lines forged their way towards the Roaring Fork Valley along very different routes. Under the aggressive leadership of David Moffett, the D&RG bet the bank on reaching the town. The narrow-gauge D&RG had already pushed north over Tennessee Pass, reaching the Eagle River not far from present-day Minturn where I-70 crosses the Eagle. The narrower, lighter rails allowed tighter turns, and the tracks proceeded along the Eagle, eventually joining the Colorado River and then up the Roaring Fork towards Basalt, or Aspen Junction as it was then known, where the two rival lines actually crossed each other. The standard-gauge Colorado Midland engineers chose perilous Hagerman Pass as the gateway to the upper Frying Pan River. This was the shortest route to Basalt from Leadville, but included some serious obstacles to conquering the Continental Divide. Long, curving wooden trestles and tunnel bores through the shifting rock were among the construction challenges the Midland faced between Leadville and the Roaring Fork Valley, while the southern route between Basalt and Aspen, about where Highway 82 is today, demanded two high bridges over Maroon and Castle Creeks. The standard-gauge Midland rails required more rail bed and a less circuitous route, but with the payoff of added carrying capacity. Heavy snows and avalanches on the more exposed mountain section of the route would be common in winter once the line was completed, requiring constant plowing of the tracks. In 1889, a train was stranded by an avalanche for 78 days. The D&RG reached the confluence of the Colorado and Roaring Fork rivers in Glenwood Springs, where it arrived on October 5th of 1887. From here, the crews worked feverishly laying track as the rails turned southeast and followed the Roaring Fork up its course to Basalt and then on towards Aspen. It seemed almost unbelievable that the first work train arrived at the depot in what is now known as Rio Grande Park only 3 weeks later. The Colorado Midland built a railroad engineering marvel through the Continental Divide. The route included 4 180-degree trestles, one of them over 1,000 feet long, several sections of 3% or more incline, 8 snow sheds, and the 2,164-foot-long Hagerman Tunnel. The railroad then descended the Frying Pan Valley and turned towards Aspen, and actually had the upper hand in the race until the required bridge construction over Maroon Creek proved too great a hurdle. The steel needed for the 650-foot span was delayed in arriving from the east, and the frustrated Midland crews had to watch as the first D&RG work train arrived on October 27th and the first official passenger train on November 1st. An estimated 4,000 people turned out for what ended up to be a multi-day celebration as officials and celebrities arrived by train to thunderous ovations. At the banquet, prominent Aspenite J.M. Dowling proclaimed,
"Then here's to our Aspen, her youth and her age. We welcome the railroad, say farewell to the stage. And whatever our lot, and wherever we be, then here's God bless forever the D&RG."
Once the tardy shipment of steel arrived, the Colorado Midland crews built the Maroon Creek Bridge in just 6 weeks, and we ended up using that bridge for 120 years. The Midland pulled into the Dean Street station about 90 days after the D&RG in February of 1888. The competition between the two railroads would keep shipping and passenger fares low, and every one of the 10 daily trains that left full of ore returned carrying the construction and cultural supplies of the growing city. J.B. Wheeler first stepped into Aspen from a stagecoach in the spring of 1883. Just 4.5 years later, David Moffett of the Denver and Rio Grande stepped down from his private coach to the platform in what we now know as Rio Grande Park. The foundation laid between those two events would support Aspen's destiny as a full-blown city of the industrial age.